Call recorder. Started. Okay. Well, congratulations, you all. Good job.
Thank you.
What did you think once you started, getting around quarterfinals? Were you like, oh man, this is really happening, or was it just kind of, okay, it's the next round? What did it feel like?
Well, we got to semifinals at nationals last year, so it felt almost exactly the same. But it was when we, broke semifinals that it really felt different and really amazing.
Yeah, the whole time though, I was kind of in shock because I was never expecting to do the same thing 2 years in a row. So yeah, every round was pretty crazy when we heard the announcements for breaks.
Yeah, I think most people don't dare to come back once they've made it to, top five, because it's hard to do that more than once, right? So tell me about, I'm always fascinated by the war stories of what gets you to finals, and kind of, there's usually some worst possible moment well before finals that you're kind of cringing at, and there's usually something that really happened that was great that nobody sees unless they go to finals. It might be buried in some prelim or early out round that just was like a turning point. I'd love to hear some of those stories.
Okay, so Cora, do you want to go first, or me next? Okay, so what do you mean about turning point or gruesome battle?
I know that for me, there was this one. I think it was quarterfinals way back that my second year, that I just was blown away by the fact that we won it. It was so close, and just the way I ended the 2AR, I felt like was terrible, and I thought, oh no, there's no way we're going to pick this up, and then we did, and everybody kind of agreed that was one of these great rounds, and I didn't even I don't like thinking about the round that happened after that. I like remembering that because it was kind of this great moment, but at the same time, we also hit this weird thing way early in out rounds, an argument that the District of Columbia wasn't topical as a protectorate or whatever. And that was a very interesting argument to hear at nationals, and tested us on something we hadn't touched in forever. And so that was, we had to adapt. So I'd like to hear stories like that.
Okay. Okay, so absolutely. So our preliminary rounds were actually easier than we expected. It felt like we went through them pretty easily. So Octafinals, our first elimination round, kind of caught us off guard. The speakers were really good. They were really sharp. They were really onto it. So I was shocked when we won that round. I felt like it was close, but I thought it was way too close for us. So Octafinals was really hard. We eventually pulled it off by one judge. Then quarterfinals was relatively easy. We swept it 5-0.
Okay.
Because we prepped the case the day before nationals. But then semifinals again, it was a really close round, and we were affirmative. So
cool. So tell me about quarterfinals.
I'm really excited to pull that one off too.
What was the case, and what was your strategy that you prepped? Because I like people hearing that sometimes the best strategies happened you just the day of or the day before, right?
Yeah, it was actually declare Kurdistan independent, and so it was one of those cases that we had lost to previously in the year. We were kind of scared of it because judges loved the idea of supporting the Kurds and doing that good thing for an ally in the Middle East. But we prepped it, like Stefanie said, the day before nationals, just because we were so scared of it, and we figured we should have something prepared. And we ended up, the strategy was good. We had evidence to support why the United States is not, or why the Kurdistan is not ready to be recognized as independent yet. And we had, 4 or 5 specific reasons why not, which I started out in my 1NC, and then Stefanie backed it up later. And it just went really, really well in quarterfinals.
Really well.
So you guys would say you probably shelled and extended that round? You kind of just kept the same 4 or 5 points?
Points and then expanded on them,
We had inherency, and then we talked about economically, politically, and militarily. But that round was off to such a great start. In the very first cross-examination, I got them to admit that they had absolutely no evidence that their case wouldn't happen in the future. So it was really weird.
Interesting. Yeah, so they weren't expecting someone to have a kind of just simple and direct strategy where inherency for once in a while actually works.
Yeah, I think so. They actually used 4 minutes of prep time before their first speech as affirmative. Wow. So yeah.
Okay, so you all pushed them off guard a little bit. And why do you think other people didn't discover this argument previously?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm not
Well,
sure.
so the problem is that at the North Carolina Open, we hit this case, not this specific team, but this specific case in double octafinals, and we ran, the generic neg press. We thought we did really well on it, but it just didn't sell to the judges. They didn't get it, so we were like, we have to do something different, and that's, the different that we decided to do. So I think it was because we probably hit the case previously and then decided to adjust our strategy.
Do you think that part of your side of the argument was it's really best for the Kurds on the negative point of view?
Oh, yeah. And that ties back into staying, updated on current events. We had different statements from, the Iraqi Kurdish prime minister saying that right now we need cooperation with Baghdad to fight ISIS. And they were they didn't have any responses to that. Like, the fact that the Kurds and, the Baghdad military are actually cooperating like never before.
We had examples of battles they had been successful in, and therefore they were able to have successes against ISIS, etc., because of that cooperation. So yeah, current events also helped with that.
I see. So at the end, you all had the ability to capture that emotional element that they'd relied on earlier, and still be for the Kurds,
right?
And then able to display your recent knowledge, and it seems like maybe they hadn't adapted the case to the most current events or didn't see it coming.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a good story. Okay, so how about that octafinal round? What was the substance of the round?
Well, okay, so it was really weird because they actually ran the case, cut A to the Syrian rebels that we've ran previously all year. So it was kind of awkward. But thankfully, again, we hit this case in preliminary rounds at nationals. And although we lost the round, we really adjusted our strategy to make sure that we would do a better job when we hit it in octafinals.
Yeah.
It was different, though, because they ran it differently than we did. So we didn't, we ran it like what we usually run in the constructives. But it was an awkward round because we had to kind of, shift our arguments in the rebuttals because they had a weird response as AF that we weren't expecting. They went, totally pro-Assad, which was really weird.
I see. So in the ballots, this was a split round, right?
Yes.
Right.
What were the key arguments kind of on both sides that the judges ended up considering? I know everybody's interested because Syria was such a big case this year.
Okay, so the one that we lost said that we brought up our arguments way too late because most of their responses came out of the 1AR, so I only brought up not new arguments, but at least new responses in the 2NR. So that judge didn't like it; she voted against us. But the other two, they voted under a premise that Assad was the key and the root of the instability in Syria and Iraq, because the affirmative team was saying that Assad is the best option and that the United States has to back him, we can't overthrow him. And we were just no, that's, Assad was the one who fostered ISIS. We had evidence that he's the one who not created, but at least aided the creation of these extremist groups. So...
Yeah, we also talked about how in order to defeat ISIS, we need fronts on two sides, just geographically, on the west and the east, and how the Syrian rebels are our main force on the western side, and if we totally cut our aid to them, it's also, hurting our fight against ISIS. So, both of those arguments.
I see.
Those were our two main arguments.
Well, let's... Thank you. So, let's turn to AF. Actually, what was your record in prelims?
We went 4-2, actually. Wait, 4-2, not 2-1, Cora.
No, AF. AF
yeah, AF. We went 2-1.
Okay, so you lost an AF and a neg in prelims. Do you mind telling us about the neg that you lost? Because you all advanced on neg and out rounds, which is pretty sweet. What was the one neg that you all lost to?
Yeah, we lost to cut A to Syrian rebels, actually. So that was the first time we hit it at the tournament. And we realized our strategy wasn't the greatest. And so, we kind of tweaked it a little bit in octafinals, and it worked out better.
I see. So what did you eliminate between those two rounds from your strategy?
I think in prelims, because we had run the case earlier, we just had so many different arguments, and it just did not come out very well because there were so many different things going on, and we got confusing a little bit, I think. So in octafinals, we tried to condense it more to the main arguments, and I think that was a lot more effective.
So in quarterfinals, you had one theme, but early in the prelim, it's you have, this is the case that everybody has gobs and gobs of information on, and it just kind of didn't come out cohesive.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so how about this app? Let's tell people the story, because I know that you all made some, crazy recent adaptations to it right before nationals. I'd love for people to hear kind of what happened and your decision process and then how it worked.
Right, so at regionals, we ran the case in preliminary rounds and in out rounds, and every single debate run was always muddled in specifics. Like, do you have logistics? Do you know how we're going to do this? Is this even a real thing? And it was really annoying. But this tournament, adding the JP 360, which was like the most brilliant suggestion we've ever got, it really changed the focus of the debate into should the United States do this, not necessarily can the United States do this.
Okay, and what's the JP 360?
The JP 368
Oh, 368.
is the outline, basically the formation, document recording what the United States does whenever we have a non-combatant evacuation operation. And it was really helpful to be able to refer to that throughout the round. And we had that huge binder of it printed out at the table that we could hand the negative team and look super prepared, so that was nice.
Okay, and so what did people really test the details and then give up, or did it, just because your mandates already referred to this specific thing, they kind of just didn't even touch it? How did that play out once you went from, debater mind mandates to, we're mandating a real type of U.S. policy with specific doctrine?
Yeah, sometimes they would ask specific questions, especially after the 1AC, and then we'd be able to just refer to the JP 368. I would refer to it sometimes in the 2AC if they asked specific questions, and after that they wouldn't really talk about specifics anymore because they realized we had it all backed up with government documents.
Right. Like, they still argue logistics maybe in one argument, but it was completely different from regionals when their entire, 1NC was, we don't know how they're going to do this, we don't know how they're going to do that. Having that documentation really helped.
Very cool. So to what extent, I have really strong opinions about when debaters refer to, we have this long thing that you can read in your time, to debate us, and it's going to defeat all your arguments. How did you all actually present that?
We didn't really say that in the round. We just had it basically for reference to say, this is the document the U.S. has that details everything they need to know about NEOs. We didn't tell the negative team to read it necessarily, but we just kind of had it to prove that there is information out there. There is a process the U.S. uses. Let's debate about the actual policy instead of the minute details.
It was really funny, though, actually, because I was kind of expecting them to, question, what's in this JP 368 or whatever. But what I found really interesting was because they were all at nationals and most of our AF rounds were in out rounds, they kind of pretended they knew what was in the JP 368. It was really weird. In the debate rounds, they totally referred to it like they've already read it. It's really funny.
Stephanie had this hilarious cross-ex question in finals when she was asking Stephen Phillum, and then he said something that was not quite in line with what the JP 368 said, so Stephanie goes up there and she's like, have you ever read the JP 368? And he goes, no, and then the whole audience starts laughing. It was great.
Because he just kept referring to it like he reads it like a school book. So I was fine with that type of neg take on it.
That's funny. That's good. So anything else that you want to share about the rounds? I have a couple other questions kind of about the process of nationals, but anything else that really stood out from the tournament?
I think. What specifically, maybe?
Like you walk away, you're going to remember the content of the round for the rest of your life. There's sometimes those rounds where they just stand out.
So I really feel that all of our rounds at nationals kind of stand apart and a little bit different and unique from our previous rounds this entire season, because this tournament we've always, I felt like, had good arguments in debate, but this year we really polished our speeches with punchlines and really cool openers and closers, like you and Rebecca Frazier talked a lot about during that little prep season, and it was a really different feel going in and out of our rounds, and I think that's why Cora got 4th in speaks and I got 7th. We've never placed that high previously, because I think it was those punchlines, opening, closings. It really was really cool and powerful.
Awesome. So you guys invested the time to do speeches in debates.
Right. It's not something that we usually tried to do previously. Yeah. Usually we're just we have evidence, we can beat you. But this time we actually tried to make it polished and really
the whole presentation.
That's awesome. So you guys are both top 10 speakers too. I didn't realize that. I didn't get a list of awards from anybody, and and I don't know. Last time I checked, it hadn't been published, so I'm still piecing everything together. So tell me about the tournament in terms of health and team dynamics and stuff. What advice do you have for people who are, thinking about a whole season of partnering with somebody, and especially how do you manage nationals?
As a team, like us two?
Yep.
Well, we're kind of lucky because we've actually known each other and been best friends since we were 3 years old. So we really have no problem getting along with each other. So in rounds, once in a while we'll disagree about things, but if we do, we have no problem telling each other whether we did something wrong or no, don't run that argument, and we just say okay. So we haven't really had problems as a team necessarily.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to say on that. We know each other super well.
So do you all trust, are there any, in some partnerships, for example, on NEG, one person basically has the right of way. If they say, no, we're not doing that, then you aren't. And if they say, yes, we're doing this, then you are. Is there kind of a dominant person in the partnership, or do you both kind of just trust each other's instinct? How does that work out when you have to make tough decisions?
I feel like for neg rounds, a lot of times, we know what we're going to say well before we go into the round. We already have our briefs prepped, and we already have, which arguments we're going to run, at least briefly. So I feel like there's not much conflict in the round.
Uh-huh.
When deciding which arguments to run, that'll happen, a week before Nats or the month before Nats. Then that's when we, toss ideas back and forth and say, no, don't run that. Yes, we should run that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes when we do come into conflict, I think Stefanie sometimes has the deciding factor because she does do a majority of the research, and she is also the 2N speaker. So she's the one who ties everything back at the end. So sometimes if I have a crazy idea, she'll be, no, don't run that. That's a dumb idea, and I'll just say, okay.
Yeah.
But
it's how it works out.
Mutual. Yeah.
Because I'm the last speaker in negative, so I feel like sometimes I kind of craft her next strategy, but Cora is definitely the second speaker in affirmative. So that's when she kind of shifts the debate.
Yeah, got it. No, usually I think that's typical that the second speakers often shape the debate. So what's next for you two?
We have one more year left in high school, so next year we'll definitely come back. I guess we really just want to pour into the people around us, the novices. Hopefully we'll help coach or at least assist the novices in our club, other people in our region, and friends in the nation as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It's always good to give back, and you'll find that you learn 10 times as much when you do. So any parting words of wisdom for people who are new to debate that might be watching this?
Yeah, I would say as much work as you put into debate, you're definitely going to get out of it. And don't stop trying, even if you think that you could never do well. Because I remember my novice year, I knew nobody besides my one debate partner. I didn't talk to anybody. We lost almost all of our rounds, and I thought, this is ridiculous. But I really like debate, and so I kept on trying, and I kept on doing it, and it's been 4 years now. And I don't know, being a girl team especially, you would think that we could never do very well because there's all these intimidating guys around that we're debating. But it definitely is possible. So if you work hard and you just keep practicing, keep pouring into different coaches and camps and clubs, and I don't know, just work hard and you can definitely achieve whatever you want to, even if you're girls in debate. So
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I always loved being the girl underdog. In previous years, we'd always win, but for some reason we were always the underdog. But just keep adding it. I think especially for girls, it's important to be really confident. Someone once told us, if you don't have confidence, just fake it. Because I think in our rounds that we did lose, the ballots that we did lose in finals, it's because they said we were flustered in cross-examination, or we just look intimidated by the other team. So I think just, staying strong with arguments and in cross-examination, even when there's tall, older guys arguing against you, will really get you really far.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the time today. I know this will be super valuable to lots of people to hear the war stories and some encouragement. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much for coaching us.
You are welcome. Anytime. Take care.
Right. Thank you.